The split team concept, something I brought up in a video last week. It's the idea where you have two cities, usually not too far from each other, hosting the same sports franchise, each city getting about half of the team's home games. It was most recently suggested in 2019 that the Rays play half the season in Tampa Bay and the other half in Montreal, unusual in that the two cities are nowhere near each other, but an interesting proposal that could have benefited both cities. The Rays have trouble filling the seats where they are now. Tropicana Field is not located in the city, and it's hard for the majority of the population to get out there, especially on weeknights. The experience there is not so good either. It's continuously rated as one of the worst ballparks in Major League Baseball. The obvious solution is to build a new stadium in Tampa, but easier said than done. In Montreal, a lot of local residents miss having a Major League team. It's been 19 years since the Expos' final season in Montreal, and they still have their old Major League stadium that's still suitable for hosting Major League games, and is going mostly unused at this time. It's not a pretty ballpark, and when the Expos played there, attendance was usually low, so they had the same problem then that the Rays have now, and that could make a Major League franchise hesitant to put a team there permanently, fearing that the same thing could happen again. But if you cut the burden in half, 40 games instead of 81, you've got a much better chance of filling the stands. Yes, there are people who go to every single game, but most fans of any team only attend 1 or 2 games every summer. Those people will still attend. Same number of fans and half the number of games results in higher average attendance. That could have happened in both cities, giving a boost to the Rays' attendance figures. The idea appeared to be gaining steam until last year when the idea was killed off completely, probably because MLB expects the Rays to either get their new stadium in Tampa or relocate as soon as possible, something permanent. The split team proposal was always just a temporary solution. Anyway, Montreal and Tampa won't be splitting the Rays' home games, but what about other teams, other cities? This is not a new concept. Cities have shared professional sports teams in the past. In baseball, something similar to that was seen in 2003 and 2004, when the Expos played 22 home games each year in San Juan. That's not exactly splitting the home schedule. Montreal still had 70% of the home games, but it was a big part of their schedule going to another city, far away. In Puerto Rico, they were glad to have a Major League team, any team, playing on their island, and they showed support for the Expos. Can't really say whether it worked or not to boost attendance in Montreal. Attendance was up in 2003, but that probably had more to do with a more competitive team on the field. Attendance was really bad in 2004, but that year the team wasn't good, and there was the uncertainty of not knowing if the team was going to remain there. MLB average attendance is usually between 25 and 30,000, with a previous record of over 32,000. That was 16 years ago. It's been trending downward ever since. And last year, 10 teams averaged under 20,000 fans a game. For some of those teams, this happens every year. Losing teams on the field is one reason. It's really hard to get over 20,000 fans to show up and watch the home team lose 81 times a year, especially in smaller markets. But even when these small market teams are winning, the average attendance usually doesn't exceed the league average. So the split team concept is something they might consider. Where can these cities be found? Well, they need to meet a few requirements. One, they need a stadium, and most AAA parks won't do. If they want to raise the team's average attendance over 20,000, the stadium needs more than 20,000 seats. Most AAA parks are under 15,000 capacity. They could build a new stadium with, say, 22,000 seats specifically for this purpose. It would be cheaper than building a major league stadium of over 30,000, so cities might be more willing to fund a stadium project like this. But it also means they would have to give up all hope of having a permanent Major League franchise anytime in the near future. A Major League team could do this with its AAA city, but not another team's AAA city. No way that would happen. And you'll see as we go, AAA cities are often nowhere near the big league city, and those cities are often full of fans of some other team. You could have the Major League city and the AAA city switch teams for a little while, or the AAA team could play in the AA city, and so on. This way every city in the system gets a promotion for part of the season. Lots of different ways you could do that. I won't explore every possibility here. One city would definitely be the city, and that would go to the city that presently has the Major League franchise. The second city would have to be content with their role as the other city. So if the Rays were playing in Tampa and Montreal, it would still be Tampa's team. If they made the postseason, all home games would be at the Trop. Montreal would have been okay with it, because they'd be glad to have Major League Baseball, in some form, back in their city. But most cities that have other major professional sports teams won't be content with borrowing another city's team. The second city would have to really appreciate the chance to host a Major League team, even if it's not their own, enough to fill more than 20,000 seats a night. This could be done for half a season, a quarter season, a third, depending on demand, and it could change year by year. If the second city shows more sport continuously, it could become the first city. I made a video last summer titled 77 Cities That Can Host an MLB Game. In that video I argued that every major league team should play one game in the ballpark of their AAA affiliate, as well as some other nearby cities, maybe 5 home games away from home every year, like they do in Japan. It would be a good way to bring their brand to the smaller cities that feel really disconnected from the big league cities. Every team could make a lot of new fans that way. Today's list will be a lot smaller. Hosting dozens of games takes a greater commitment, not just any city will do. And when playing a single game in another city, the team should be willing to sacrifice their attendance figures for one day in order to attract new fans. With the split team concept, the whole point is to raise the overall attendance figures. And it's only a good idea for teams that struggle with attendance. So having the Cubs play one home game in Des Moines every year would be a great idea, but playing any more than that would make no sense at all. Okay, when you think of poor attendance numbers, one of the first cities that comes to mind is Miami. The Marlins have never had much support. In 2012, they opened a nice new stadium, much better than where they were playing before, and in a better location. But a couple weeks after opening day, it was already half empty. The team wasn't any good that year, but 2 weeks into the season, no one knew how bad they were going to be. The team was supposed to be good, but they still couldn't get people to show up. There was no problem selling out Lone Depot Park for the WBC this year, and they'll probably have no problem selling tickets for next year's Caribbean Series. Miami is an event city, with plenty of other sports options. A Marlins game isn't really an event if it's happening 81 times a year. Their AAA town is Jacksonville. The venue there is 121 Financial Ballpark, which seats only 11,000. Kind of small, but the Marlins have not reached 11,000 in average attendance since 2017, back when Giancarlo Stanton hit 59 home runs for them. If the Marlins were to sell out every night in Jacksonville, and the schedule reduction results in higher average attendance in Miami, then the overall attendance would be much higher. And maybe after a few years of selling out games in Jacksonville, they'd be willing to build something a little bigger. Only downside is the Marlins play in the NL East, and when they play the Braves in Jacksonville, they may not really be the home team. Another choice for the Marlins could be San Juan. Hiram Bithorn Stadium seats 18,000, and they proved they'll support a major league team when the Expos played there 2 decades ago. And this could be a way for the Marlins to brand themselves as the team of the Caribbean. In that case, the Dominican Republic has a few places they could play too. But while there's no shortage of excitement for baseball in Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, major league ticket prices might keep them away. Now, when it comes to actually implementing this right now, the Marlins are the only team that should do it. Attendance is going to be low there no matter what, but they don't want to give up on Miami, so splitting the team into 2 different cities could be a real solution. The next few cities I'll be talking about can blame their poor attendance figures mostly on the losing product they put out year after year. If you go back to when some of these teams were winning, you'll see decent numbers for attendance. Not great, but decent. Maybe they don't need a new city, just new players, or more likely, new management. But if these teams can turn things around on the field and the fans don't return, they might talk about moving. Before giving up on the city completely, they could think about a split team option. The Kansas City Royals are usually in the bottom 10 for attendance. They get bigger crowds when the team's winning, but even then the numbers aren't great, and most of the time they don't have a winning team. One city that could help them out with that is Omaha, the Royals' AAA city. It wouldn't be the first time these 2 cities shared a major sports franchise. From 1972 to 75, they were home to the Kansas City Omaha Kings of the NBA. Omaha was later dropped from the name, so it was just Kansas City Kings, but they still played in both cities. It didn't work out and the team moved to Sacramento. It was a bad idea to try and play in 2 cities right from the start. They would have been better off trying to build their brand slowly in Kansas City. They already had the Royals and Chiefs. They weren't too excited about a new team they had to share with a smaller city. Kansas City doesn't appear to be in any danger of losing the Royals anytime soon, but they could benefit from giving up part of their home schedule. Charles Schwab Field in Omaha seats 24,000 and is expandable to 35,000. So when expanded, it's a major league-sized stadium. Even at 24,000, that's more than the Royals' average attendance. Omaha proved 4 years ago it could fill the seats for 1 Royals game. I don't know how many games a year they could sell out, but it would be something to look into, as long as it doesn't clash with the College World Series schedule. Cleveland has often had trouble with attendance, usually in the bottom 10, better when the team's looking good. Last year they had a really good team but only averaged 15,000 a game. That was likely due to the name change turning off a lot of fans. It's rebounding a little this year though. 3 major cities in Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. Not a big difference in size between the 3, but they're so close together that one city is always left without a team. Cleveland and Cincinnati have NFL and MLB. Columbus is left out. Cleveland has NBA, Columbus has NHL, and Cincinnati gets left out in the winter. Columbus has MLS in the summer, but that's only 17 home games over a span of 6 months. They could probably support a shared Major League franchise at the same time. And Columbus is the AAA affiliate of the Cleveland Guardians. Unfortunately, their home, Huntington Park, only seats 10,000, guaranteed to bring the Guardians' average attendance down if they decide to play there. So this will only work if they're willing to fund a new 20,000-seat stadium. And Huntington Park is only 14 years old, so they're not in need of a new venue. So this one wouldn't work today, but maybe years later it could. The Cincinnati Reds usually find themselves in the bottom 10 for attendance. Their AAA city is Louisville, a city with no major professional sports teams, and they would be thrilled to have the Reds play a part of their season there. They've got a nice ballpark there, Louisville Slugger Field, but same as in Columbus, it's just not big enough. 13,000 seating capacity. Reds attendance isn't great in Cincinnati, but it's always more than that. The field's been open since 2000, so they're not looking to build a new one. Just like I said with the Guardians playing in Columbus, this could happen one day, but not anytime soon. The Pittsburgh Pirates are another team in the area that struggles at the gate. They haven't topped 20,000 in attendance since 2017. Just as with the other teams around there, if the team's winning, fans tend to show up more. And they're looking pretty good this year, so we'll see where it goes from here. Their AAA city is Indianapolis, and playing there just wouldn't work. Plenty of baseball fans in Indy, just not Pirates fans. Of all the NL Central teams, the Pirates might have the smallest number of fans in that city. So bad idea there. And there are no other cities nearby where the Pirates could play. They'd have no choice but to play in a second city far from Pittsburgh. That would mean a city that doesn't have a Major League affiliated team. We've already mentioned Montreal, San Juan, and Santo Domingo as possibilities. Another overseas option is Mexico. I've always liked Monterrey as a possible Major League city, close to the U.S. border, near the Texas teams. But of course the Texas teams have no reason to play outside their home cities. They've got a stadium, Estadio de Béisbol Monterrey, that seats just under 22,000, so that's taken care of. And they've already hosted a few Major League series in the recent past. Other people have told me that Mexico City would be a better place for it. It's got a proper stadium too. Estadio Alfredo Harpelú seats over 20,000, and is hosting a Major League series between the Padres and Giants this weekend. Both of those stadiums are home to LMB teams, so they'd have to work around the LMB schedule, which starts a few weeks later than MLB and crowns a champion in early September. If they host the Pirates or any other team from up north, it would be good to have them play in Mexico in April. That's usually the worst month for attendance for northern teams. Put them in Mexico in April where they'll draw large crowds in warm weather. Then send them back up north when it's warming up and people are ready to head out to the ballpark. Other sizable cities with no Major League affiliated teams include New Orleans and Orlando. Both cities would need to build new ballparks to accommodate a team for half a season. Good thing is they're not restricted to one Major League organization. Downside is the only use they'd get from the ballpark is a half season or less from a Major League team. No minor league team to use it the rest of the summer. They'd want to make sure they have some other use for it before paying for its construction. Cities that are real expansion candidates right now, Nashville, Salt Lake City, Portland, and, though they're not pushing for a team, I'll include them here, Charlotte, would not be good places for a split team. If those cities are going to build a new ballpark, it's going to be for a permanent Major League franchise. If they don't get awarded a team this time, they won't be satisfied with borrowing a team. They'll hope for future expansion or relocation, or look towards getting a major franchise in another sport. In cities like Buffalo and Oklahoma City, it could probably work. But just like with Indy, the Major League franchise they're affiliated with would have to change. Buffalo Salem Field is the highest capacity AAA park, and it's expandable, and it's already hosted a number of Major League games recently, in 2020 and 2021. But Buffalo is the AAA affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Jays have no reason to play home games away from home. Oklahoma City has the AAA team for the Dodgers, same problem. And someone will bring it up if I don't. The split team concept for Las Vegas and Oakland to share the A's franchise will not work. The A's need to build up their brand in the new city, make Vegas residents feel like it's their team. And I think attendance is going to be just fine there. They won't need to split the schedule with another city. Sucks for the loyal fans in Oakland, but it's a reflection of the times. Vegas is a city on the rise. Oakland's glory is all in the past. Time to move on. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments. That's all for this one, and until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.